So I want to talk about the act of smelling. And if you are not somebody who's very interested in smell, but you are somebody who's interested in making your brain work better, learning faster, remembering more things, this next little segment is for you, because it turns out that how you smell, meaning the act of smelling, not how good or bad you smell, but the act of smelling, sniffing and inhalation powerfully impacts how your brain functions and what you can learn and what you can't learn. Breathing generally consists of two actions, inhaling and exhaling. And we have the option, of course, to do that through our nose or our mouth. I've talked on previous episodes about the fact that there are great advantages to being a nasal breather, and there are great disadvantages to being a mouth breather. There are excellent books and data on this. There's the recent book, Breath by James Nestor, which is an excellent book that describes some of the positive effects of nasal breathing as well as other breathing practices. There's also the book Jaws by my colleagues Paul Ehrlich and Sandra Kahn, with a foreword by Jared Diamond and an introduction by Robert Sapolsky from Stanford. So that's a book chock-a-block with heavy hitter authors that describes how being a nasal breather is beneficial for jaw structure, for immune system function, etc. Breathing in through your nose, sniffing, actually has positive effects on the way that you can acquire and remember information. Noam Sobel's group, originally at UC Berkeley and then at the Weizmann Institute, has published a number of papers that I'd like to discuss today. One of them, Human Non-Olfactory Cognition Phase-Locked with Inhalation. This was published in Nature Human Behavior, an excellent journal. Showed that the act of inhaling has a couple of interesting and powerful consequences. First of all, as we inhale, the brain increases in arousal. Our level of alertness and attention increases when we inhale as compared to when we exhale. Now, of course, with every inhale, there's an exhale. You could probably double up on your inhales if you're doing sighs or something, physiological sighs. I've talked about these before. It's a double inhales followed by an exhale, something like that. Or if you're speaking, you're going to change your cadence and ratio of inhales and exhales. But typically, we inhale, then we exhale. As we inhale, what this paper shows is that the level of alertness goes up in the brain. And this makes sense because as the most primitive and primordial sense by which we interact with our environment and bring chemicals into our system and detect our environment, inhaling is a cue for the rest of the brain to essentially to pay attention to what's happening, not just to the odors. And as the name of this paper suggests, human non-olfactory cognition, phase-locked with inhalation. What that means is that the act of inhaling itself wakes up the brain. It's not about what you're perceiving or what you're smelling. And indeed, sniffing as an action, inhaling as an action, has a powerful effect on your ability to be alert, your ability to attend, to focus, and your ability to remember information. When we exhale, the brain goes through a subtle but nonetheless significant dip in level of arousal and ability to learn. So what does this mean? How should you use this knowledge? Well, you could imagine, and I think this would be beneficial for most people, to focus on nasal breathing while doing any kind of focused work that doesn't require that you speak or eat or ingest something. There is a separate paper published in the Journal of Neuroscience that showed that indeed, if subjects, human subjects, are restricted to breathing through their nose, they learn better than if they have the option of breathing through their mouth or a combination of their nose and mouth. These are significant effects in humans using modern techniques from excellent groups. So sniffing itself is a powerful modulator of our cognition and our ability to learn. You can imagine all sorts of ways that you might apply that as a tool, and I suggest that you play with it a bit. That if you're having a hard time staying awake and alert, you're having a hard time remembering information, you feel like you have a kind of attention deficit, non-clinical, of course, nasal breathing ought to help. Extending or making your inhales more intense ought to help.